ante in a great resumption of form this season. Fox wins the Austrian Grand Prix and he wins the Italian Grand Prix. A great race for him. Will come across the line here and win the Brazilian Grand Prix. Redemption day for the American driver. She wins the Spanish Grand Prix. Will be Kubo unless Tano gets an amazing run, which he does. As he comes to the final winner for the very first time.
Hello and welcome to Ultimate Virtual. This is the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. We are here for the practice session. Not for the practice session, for the qualifying session. Haven't had practice sessions since Season 3. Of what should be a fascinating race. This is the second race, if you've not quite been keeping up, with this new generation of automobile. And you can just see the absolute speeds that they can carry around this Jeddah Corniche circuit, which should be thoroughly entertaining to watch. Last season, the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix threw up a couple of surprises, of course. A great fight all the way to the checkered flag between Grandi and Shiloh, separated in the end by only about a second. The pole time was from Vaporeon, the one season, I think wonder would be a generous word for the driver who finished bottom of the championship, but he certainly did take pole. We are already 5 seconds faster than the pole time last season, so these new cars are not in any way, shape or form to be underestimated. Juan sits on provisional pole, yet to score his first points, I believe, in Ultimate Virtual, but surely only a matter of time for the very successful JV owner and CV owner and driver of the NASA Lunar Racing squad. Should be really interesting to see. We will go through now, have a little look at the team overview. Pop it up just there. Almost every team got upgrades in this week. FVR were the only team to get speed upgrades in this week, but you can still see triumphing above all SFR with 15 upgrades to their name, albeit none of them speed, which is obviously still the most expensive one. 12 upgrades for Leadpool Racing, but they find themselves sitting bottom of the championship, the only pointless team in this season after that first race. 9 teams scored out of the 10 points scoring positions. They have the most well-rounded car, 0.8 in the standard deviation rankings, as we see Pappy improve up to third. Goose sits on a provisional pole now. Gosh, pole will be quite something for the Canadian driver. Most certainly would. Took pole at Adelaide back in Season 6. That was his last one. Yes, his teammate, in fact, took pole last time out in the season opener. This season at Kyalami. Finally back is that track. And, well, served up a thoroughly entertaining bit of racing. We'll see if that continues. We're on the final lap of qualifying here before we go to the results screen and take a look at who's spending what in terms of tokens and how that has affected things. Final corner for Mr. Pappy of the Pappy Pops Racing Squadron. He does improve. Well, no, he doesn't, but he is up to second place. Well, we have a Canadian front row lockout. Gosh, that would be quite something. Well, we'll see it all in the results now. And it's back-to-back pole positions for the Flying V-Racing drivers. Goose takes pole position here in Jeddah. It's an all-Canadian front row of the grid. Pappy sits alongside him in his best ever start so far to an Ultimate Virtual season. Will the fortunes of the Pappy Pops team, who have never finished higher than 9th in the Constructors' Championship, finally turn around this season? Shiloh starts her one of her career bests, qualifying in 3rd place. Juan, these two drivers of course fought each other in Challenger Virtual back in Season 5, and he'll start alongside her on row 2. Grandi will start from 5th place, Fox from 6th. Those were the only drivers who managed a lap time under 26 seconds. Nobody last season managed one under 30. Rito will start 7th for the Neon Sunset Virtual Team. Corvid makes it a double top 8 for Leadpool Racing, double top 9 for Audi as Prix finds herself behind her respective pink car in Corvid, and Kraft will start 10th for BFX. Going down the order, Abverse starts 11th ahead of Somehow I Made It on the 6th row of the grid. Jaruni ahead of our reigning champion Pit Crew, who I believe once again starts 14th. Jake Brad will start 15th place ahead of Caddo in the Team Velocity car. Suicide starts ahead of Todsod, the Pappy, Pops Racing cars, and the FVRs sharing rows up and down the grid. But funnily enough, very much at the opposite ends. It's first row for Goose and Pappy, and it's the 9th row for Suicide and Todd. Cadda will start ahead of Anti right at the back of the field. Anti's lap time was about a second slower. Oh no, sorry, it was about 2 seconds slower than the pole time. We'll have a look at the tokens, and it's a very interesting spend, which you will have already seen checking earlier on today. Many drivers spending 3 tokens, which will provide us a really good basis test for how their cars perform. Grandy, Shiloh, Goose, Fox, Pappy and Juan are all spending 3 tokens. To recap where they are on the grid, Goose in first is spending 3, Pappy in second is spending 3, Shiloh in third is spending 3, Juan in 4th is spending 3, Grandy in 5th is spending 3, and Fox in 6th is spending 3. Rito in 7th is spending 2, Corvid downwards, no tokens. So take this as your microcosm. This is what the qualifying was like with all these drivers on equal tokens. Rito the outlier, and this was the non-token qualification. Leadpool Racing, the fastest of the tokenless drivers. We'll have to see how that shakes out though in the race, but should be fascinating. We very rarely have such an even split. We have 19 drivers all spending either 3 tokens or 0 tokens, allowing for direct comparison. As a fun little thing, we'll take a look at the standings. We've only had just the one race this season, but it was Anti who won it with the fastest lap. He leads the championship by 8 points over Jaruni, who was very close to winning that race and would have been quite a story to lead the UV championship in his first race back from the depths of JV. But alas, he sits second, Grandy sits third, Todd 4th, Prix, then Pappy looking to build on his good start to the season, as is Grandy. The other drivers not spending too many. Rito looking for a couple more points here today, although with 6 drivers spending more tokens than him, that may be a challenge for what has not proven to be a hugely quick Neon Sunset car. And finally, the Constructors' Championship. SFR lead the way by 7 points over BFX, who are the only team to have 2 drivers scoring points last time out. Jaruni in second, Kraft in 10th. Although Kraft in 10th with 2 tokens wasn't a great result for the team. Leadpool looking to get on the board with some points today. A double top 8 qualifying should help that. Let's go straight through now to the racing action. The sun has set here in Saudi Arabia and we're ready for some racing. We are underway for the Grand Prix here in Ultimate Virtual. Pappy and Shiloh and Juan all starting on the soft. Goose, our pole sitter, was on the hard though. We'll take a close look to see if he can keep this lead as they come through the first sector. All is fine for the Canadians so far. Still first and second. Juan has jumped up to third. Pappy shoots into the race lead. Can Juan now try and make his move through? Goose deploys a bit of that FVR turbo, and Juan will get him though, deploying it down the main straight. Managed to stick close to him through the final sector. Goose down to third on the opening lap. Shiloh and Rito, Prix, and then Grandy and Fox, Kraft and Corvid, your top 10. Pick her up 3 positions. Adver there as well. Suicide made up a few spots off the start. Looks like a poor start for Jaruni. He's right down the order now, actually. And Todsod down into 19th. Pappy now leads from Juan, who got a really poor exit out of that final corner. You can see Goose briefly making inroads there. Not for too much longer, though. Juan will just maintain that second position, at least for now. Shiloh, third. Rain on its way tonight here in Jeddah. Prix looking for a move on Rito while all that's happening. Fox will also look to barge his way through. It is frenetic racing up top here. Juan in, Pappy, then Goose, Prix, then Shiloh, Fox, then Rito. what the order of these drivers coming out be. Goose is very close to Pappy on the exit of the pit lane. Prix, Shiloh, Fox, Rito, Grandy still all in that order. It's going to be very tight between Pit Crew and Suicide. Will Suicide get him with the acceleration out of the pits? Yes, he will. And Suicide just slides through in these wet conditions up to 12th position. Somehow made it. Jake Brad, Anti, Caddo and a big scrap at the back here. Juan leads the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. We, of course, have somewhat of a track record of rookies and sort of lower experienced drivers doing well here. Kamikaze took his first and only victory in Ultimate Virtual at this circuit back in season 5. Yeah, that sounds right. Shiloh very nearly won here for Furia last season. Goose still fighting through here historically. Be interesting to see how these teams have ran, the Pappy Pops and the Fly V Racing team. Currently, Pappy makes a bit of an error, and Goose actually just sends it right around the outside of the chicane section. It's very much on the edge racing. Juan is being slightly reeled in by the drivers ahead of him. If we look back to the results of the Saudi Grand Prix last season, as we see Juan still leading the way. Yeah, Todd did well. Goose finished 10th in the end, so not incredible for them. And then back in, yes, very interesting to see indeed. This newly promoted Audi team, what can they do here tonight? Right, we'll have a look down at the rest of the field. It's Juan from Pappy and then Goose, everyone on the same age. Wet weather tyre. Shiloh looking to make a move on Rito if she can, up through this flat out chicane section. Yes, she does get the move done. Rito keeps half a nose in, but as they dance through the corner exit, it will be Shiloh maintaining that position. Fox, then Grandy, the teams with a high grip like the BFX taking a little less paint on that wall, whereas some of the lower grip teams will certainly have an issue there. BFX and SFR are your high grip teams. Velocity, Fox, Neon Sunset Virtual and Leadpool Racing, all with pretty decent grip as well. And then the poor grip teams are your Thunder X's, as well as Flying V Racing, Audi and Pappy Pops. So actually all three of the front three runners have really quite terrible grip. The Audi has very literally no grip whatsoever. One grip, the tied second least for the Pappy Pops racers and for the Flying V racers, and then Grandy looking to make some inroads here with very little grip as well. So interesting to see that these are the drivers spending tokens on this track. Maybe they think that by prioritizing speed and acceleration, like you can see in the case of the Thunder X, in the case of the Audi, is that going to be the better approach to go by, and sacrificing grip at this circuit? Do they think they don't need much grip at this circuit? Well, will be very interesting to see how that all comes to pass. Something else to look at, the speed stats. Audi and Thunder X still leading the way on 3. Fly V Racing pumped up their speed as we see our first people into the pit lane. Suicide, Jaruni, Anti, Kada, Todd and Cad O all in, and now all of our front runners come in as well. Goose is ahead of Pappy, then it's Shiloh and Rito. Grandy, Kraft just ahead of Fox. Interesting to see Kraft here, as we can see from the token spends. No tokens for the BFX drivers. We have Goose in first with 3, Pappy in second with 3, Shiloh in third with 3, Rito now in 5th with 2, Rito now in 6th with 2, Grandy up to 5th with 3, Kraft with none, Fox with 3 is behind the tokenless BFX now, interestingly enough, and then Corvid with none is in 9th, Abva. So somebody must have dropped out of this fight, have they? Unless I'm missing something, I think maybe they haven't. It's Juan, Goose, Pappy, Grandy, Shiloh and Fox who are on the 3 token spends, and Rito on the 2. So actually only 7 drivers spending tokens is quite low. 6 would be very low, but still very interesting as the Canadians lap their fellow Canuck. Todd Sod getting a little bit in the way, but actually Goose has dropped just back behind Pappy now. So can he get him back? Surely with that soft versus the hard compound tyre. He'll stand a good chance of getting him through some of the more flat out sections. He closes up into the final corner, both drivers using their turbo, but Goose gets a really terrible exit, just trying to make a little bit of a line for himself there, and Pappy will absolutely sail through into second place. Juan leading pretty much undisturbed, but so was Shiloh at various points of the Saudi Grand Prix last season, and she got reeled back time and time again until Grandy eventually snatched it in the dying embers. Still, the top three remain unchanged. Where can we get some good battling? Grandy on the hards in 6th, Fox on the hards in 7th, and Kraft on the mediums in 8th. If drivers ahead of him are spending 3 tokens, well, he spends none. Rito's up to 4th. He's on the softs. He's only spending 2 tokens, though. Interesting to see. Closed in, and now we see Juan, who's really taken some slowing, maybe from Anti there, but Pappy working his way through. Will he be able to craft up a move? Will he have the extra pace to do so? Juan uses turbo off the exit of that corner just at the point where Pappy got real slowdown from the wall, so the gap between them has grown by a significant amount. Goose in 3rd position, still looking to bide his time and see if he can get in that fight. Will the Canadians be able to take down the Belgian driver? Well, we'll have to wait and see. Goose closing up to the back of Pappy here. Pappy was really close to Juan, was really close to Goose, and now might look to be really close to Juan yet again. Suicide slows up Juan a little bit, but will he also slow up his teammate? Yes, he will, unfortunately. Gets Goose a little bit as well, but now Goose really close to the back of Pappy. Surely it's only a matter of time before Goose on the softs will be able to bridge that gap. Pappy was a bit of a stopper in the bottle because he kept on fluctuating from being very close to the race leader to dropping way back. Goose will now just have to make a couple moves on lapped cars. That's to really slow down there, and that is why he's going into the pit lane. Pappy absolutely flies his way through the first couple corners on low grip and will find himself sliding off just a little bit there. Juan also on these low grip tyres is actually drifting around that hairpin in sector 2 at the far end of the circuit. My god. What will we see from here on in? Pappy has kept good pace with Juan, all things considered. Pit stops are very much a big penalty when it comes to these cars because of the speed that you can see them going down the main straight. Well, these cars are not actually going that quickly. But at certain times you can see Juan has now dropped a good few seconds back from the leading pack. Goose finally does have his track position over him. Pappy leads the Grand Prix. Grandy now up to 2nd place. That is as a result of Goose and Juan pitting. Shiloh up to 3rd as well. Surely Goose will get past here. Yes, he will, and absolutely gallivants through. Keeps it nice and tidy on the exit of turn 2. Can he try and craft a move on Grandy here? He just gets all out of shape, but then Grandy goes straight to the back of Jake, and Goose send one to the outside or the inside coming to this left-hander. He looked to stick half a nose up the inside, but then thought the better of that and just backed out of that move entirely. He'll get Grandy on the straight into the chicane. Nice and easy does it. Has to contend a little bit with the back marker there. But now Shiloh really looking for a move on Grandy. You could argue that wasn't too clean. But regardless, she will go through, and Grandy, with 3 tokens in this race, is somewhat dropping back, fighting with Shiloh still. Jake finally gets out of the way, and Grandy uses that little section of track to get through. Juan was having a bit of a difficult time coming through the field, still in 5th place on those medium tyres. He will surely make that a position higher now as he flies through on Shiloh and through a very quick chicane that was sort of barely a consideration for the drivers last season, but now at the speeds they're travelling at this season, they need to just be careful and try and pick the right line as they go through that corner, especially when overtaking on the inside. Goose gets through on Pappy. That's Goose's fresher softs against Pappy's quite old hards. Pappy will be in this lap before a pit stop. If not, then next lap Prix goes in. She is down in 12th position. We'll do a tyre round down from the top. Goose on medium worn softs, Pappy on pretty old hards, Juan on still quite fresh mediums, Shiloh on really quite old mediums. Grandy has just come out onto fresh softs. That looks like the right decision. Rito on pretty good condition hards, holding up his own as 6th. Fox having a disappointing race down in 7th, but in fairness he has just pitted. Kraft comes in as well, and so does Abvo. He's actually having quite a good race for the tokenless position that he's in. Corvid here in 10th place, and Pit Crew went into 9th while we weren't looking. Low grip now on those hard compound tyres. Shiloh into the pit lane as well. She goes, and Fox goes back through. Rito really punchy above his weight. There was a lot of consideration in pre-season over how quick we thought that these cars were. One of the main talking points was the Neon Sunset Virtual. People weren't entirely sure how it was going to hold up in the race itself, but it is good to see after they got ranked the 8th fastest car in pre-season testing, the bottom few being Audi in 6th, Fox in 7th, Neon Sunset in 8th, Team Velocity in 9th, and Pappy Pops the 10th quickest car. They have made certain strides now to see Rito being competitive on a 2 token spend versus quite a lot of 3 token spenders. Juan now through with Pappy having come into the pit lane. Juan will pit later than Goose, who has taken a slight undercut with the soft compound tyres here. But we'll have to see how that shakes out towards the end of the race. These two fierce competitors in many walks of life, really. Pappy is a man who is known for his racing skill, his skill in resilience, getting that team back up, and of course took a wonderful P6 last time out. Oh, lots of collisions going on there. Pappy just has to needle his way through them, which you can do when you have nice grippy tyres like this. Grandy is now in 3rd and Goose down to 4th on the mediums. These two drivers will have to get their way through this pack. Grandy slowly starting to come back into this. It looked disappointing to see him fighting for 5th with the likes of Shiloh rather than fighting at the front with the Canadians and Juan. Goose, though, quite opportunistic there, looks to make a move, but this train of velocities is not helping him out. Kada and Kado fighting currently over 18th and 19th positions. There they are. Grandy goes through now on those Team Velocity cars. Can he get through into 3rd position, get him up and running in the podiums? No, he just goes deep into that corner, makes a bit of a mistake, and will take the slowdown that comes with it. Juan is now into the pit lane. Pappy goes through into 1st, Goose goes through into 2nd, and Grandy will go through into 3rd. Juan should be safe enough from Shiloh behind, but actually the overspeed coming out of the pit lane, it's interesting to see because it's the pit exit here feeds out directly into turns 1 and 2. You don't lose quite as much time. In Kyalami, there's a significant bit of straight from that point where you take the pit limiter off all the way up to turn 1, and that actually meant that we saw some overtakes getting done, not necessarily in the pit lane, but just the slow acceleration of cars coming out of the pit lane, meaning they got swamped on their way to turn 1, but coming out into the midst of turns 1 and 2 here means that other cars will have to sort of slow down and stick to your racing line and may well get stuck behind you, as we see Juan getting through on Grandy. I feel Grandy, barring some extenuating weather circumstances, may just have to settle for 4th place here, potentially even 5th place. He has to turn quite sharply to get into that pit box. He comes out just ahead of Shiloh. This will depend entirely on, yeah, he just gets the limiter off slightly faster, meaning that he goes through. Meanwhile, Goose and Pappy, look at this fight, both on the mediums now. Pappy's are that bit older, and Goose came through. We saw them fighting in the bottom of frame, 1st and 2nd for them now. Juan, who came onto the softs a few laps ago, now in 3rd place. He is the only runner in the top 7 who is not on the medium tyre. We have Grandy in 4th, Shiloh in 5th, Fox in 6th, and Kraft in 7th. A great tokenless performance for what is looking like a BFX car back to its best, you have to say. Actually, they had a really rough couple of seasons since the start of Season 5. 2 back-to-back 8th place finishes in the World Constructors' Championship. They are now raking in the points, even with not a lot of token spending so far, only 3 tokens spent so far, and they look to be on course to score a good few points from that. I believe they would end up today on something like 23 or 24 points. Rito through on Fox there, not having a great day. His teammate Abver is doing alright though. He is the 2nd highest of the tokenless runners. That is a fight contested between Kraft, Abver, Pit Crew, Jeru, and previously Corvid, although he's fallen back a little bit. To be fair, so is Jeru from Pit Crew, and Jeru needs to come in as well at some point soon. The top 3 as they were. Goose, Pappy, Juan. Will we see these 3 standing on the podium? It'd be difficult to argue not, but Grandy, who's just put on the mediums, if he can put in some good lap times now, Pappy will be coming in off those mediums pretty soon. Goose and Juan as well. Grandy's best chance really is to put in some very good lap times on the medium. Then the drivers ahead will have to pit, and Grandy will just have to hope that they are just about within his pit window. Juan now closing in on Pappy. It is very old medium versus quite old soft. Juan has a very opportunistic look around the outside of that hairpin. Nothing doing there. Kada will cover off the inside as a lapped car here. Pappy will still keep this position. This is fantastic racing. He just needs to get this corner right. Yes, Juan gets stuck slightly behind him. What an absolute traffic jam it is coming down the main straight. Drivers from all sorts of different laps are really fighting out. You can see on the mini-map, look at how much traffic there is. It's Fox going off, Prix getting in the way of her teammate Anti, and Kraft will also be ahead. Juan now gets through on Prix, gets through on Anti, gets a little nudge from Fox behind. Kraft is still ahead. Goose still leads this Grand Prix, and this is Christmas come early for the Canadians out front. Juan now comes in after a horrible in-lap. He would have been a good few seconds slower than his time anyways, but look at that, 9 seconds off his best lap, and that does see him fall all the way behind Shiloh as he comes into the pit lane. That was a very slow in-lap comparative to Pappy, who is a good 2 seconds clear of Grandy just the lap after he came out of the pit lane. Juan, though, immediately looking to make up ground here. That pack is now ahead. They're going to be squabbling up the road from these gents. Pappy now has to deal with a bit of that. Goose is there as well. Look at this chaotic racing that we're getting. Lovely to see through these chicanes of Jeddah. Grandy really gets slowed up by Todd, and so said lap cars, and I haven't said this for a very long time, but as a reminder, in virtual leagues, lap cars are under no obligation to move out of the way, as Goose just looks to have a bit of a personal attack on Kraft there. He looks very frustrated with him, tries to shove him off, and that just slows him down more. That means that Pappy will go through into the race lead. Pappy Pops Racing have taken 1 victory ever in Ultimate Virtual. That came last season at the Monaco Grand Prix. Suicide with his 4 token spend, a big gamble for them personally, but it looked like it did come off in the end. Will we see Pappy? He's never won a race himself. His best result, of course, coming last season in Season 6. He took a 3rd place finish at the Singapore Grand Prix. It remains to be seen. Will he hold on to this lead? He pitted at just the right point and came out in just the right area to not catch too much traffic. That traffic is all now congealed. Very much the same drivers. Look at that, Todd just getting thrown into the wall. Rito now will be coming up on this traffic. Juan is still stuck. It's incredible to see. He's still stuck back here. He's behind Shiloh. After 2 or 3 laps out of the pit lane, the fight for the lead has slipped away from him. Well and truly slipped away from him. He will need to make huge gaps because look at that, 7 seconds separate Grandy, and Juan is in again. He was on pretty fresh softs. He is in yet again to the pit lane. So is Shiloh for whatever reason. He thinks it's worth taking this 6th stop of the race. He's the only driver to pit 6 times in this Grand Prix. Incredible. Pappy will now pit. He's going for one final dash to the end on those soft compound tyres. Wow. Goose leads by 8 seconds. Will he even come in? He might not need to. He only needs to... He can lose 2 seconds a lap on Pappy and still not be in any danger. He is nearly a lap ahead of P3. That is how much this traffic has spread out the field. Juan finally through on Shiloh. That took way longer than he would have wanted it to, and especially since she came into the pit lane, she was able to basically shadow her, or she was able to shadow him rather, and still use that pace of the Leadpool racing car, which will take, it looks like, a pretty respectable 5th place finish, unless she could do anything here. But to see her and Juan on the same bit of track, on the same strategy as each other this late in the race is not what you would have wanted to see as an Audi fan, seeing Juan lead pretty much from the get-go. Goose, the whole grid in an FVR sandwich. Goose 4 laps ahead of his teammate Todd Sod. But they run pretty much together on track. Todd actually with fresher tyres will have to ask his teammate very nicely if he can unlap himself. Suicide also looking to get in the mix. The lap cars could still be the downfall of Goose. He has lost a whopping 6 seconds in the last few laps. Pappy has time, but my god does he need to be quick with it. 2.6 seconds, 1 lap to go, lots of traffic for Goose. Pappy can almost see him. Suicide needs to get in the way of Goose here. He does. Corvid also needs to get in the way of Goose for this to not work. Prix still in the way. Pappy is now right behind. He's made up all of that time and he goes down the inside, keeps his nose in, makes that position. Unbelievable, not even a lap, but a sector was the undoing of one Canadian and the gift to the other. Pappy, as he comes round the final corner for the very first time in Ultimate Virtual, is a Grand Prix winner. He wins the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Goose will come home in second place and surprisingly, shockingly, after his early race fall, but it will actually be Grandy, who is third place yet again. Mental comeback there. Juan was a good few seconds off the podium in the end. He looked so good for so much of that race. He ends 4th. Shiloh just behind him. It very easily could have been 5th for Juan, which would have been disastrous. Rito took 6th place in the end with a 2 token spend. That is a much better result than last time out. Fox in all of this chaos and whatnot comes out in 7th place. Graf, tokenless, will be just behind in 8th. A poor day for Fox, but Abva will at least scoop up a couple more points to add to their tally. He comes home in 9th, and it will be Corvid, barring a very late little run through from Jeru. No, it will indeed be Corvid. He comes home, I don't suppose we'll see anyone go in. No. 10th place for him. Wow, what a race. Pappy in first place, his first win. That race time is just quite something. We'll come back to that in a second, but it was a Canadian 1-2 in the end. They started on the front grid together, they finish in the reverse order, but still delighted for both of them, I'm sure. Goose, though, will be agonising over fumbling a victory there. I mean, really, that is quite something. FVR haven't stood on the podium for a good while. Gosh. Oh, they haven't won a race for a good while, rather. That would have been their first victory in over 3 seasons. So, yes. Well, Grandy took 3rd in the end for Thunder X, just actually as he did last week. So that is now 30 points to his name, which may make him the championship leader. I mean, Happy may be the championship leader. We'll have to find out in the results. And speaking of the results, just to comment, last season the race winner's time was 25 minutes 54 seconds and 2/100ths of a second. This season we have had a race that was 3.5 minutes faster in the same number of laps. That is quite something. Juan finished 4th in the end. There will need to be a long debrief at the Audi team because he led probably, I'd say, more laps than anyone else in that race. Certainly was up there in the top 3 for that, I think. Gosh, just see him finish 4th in the end will be a gut-wrenching result for the Audi team. 5th place for Shiloh it was for the Nepal Racing team. Not a terrible result. Colvin making a nice little compliment of double point scoring. Return 6th. Fox and Abva 7th and 9th. Kraft 8th. A very good result for BFX. That is, by the way, 2 positions better than he got last week when he spent 2 tokens versus this week spending none. Jaruni in the end was only a couple seconds off, but he will be outside the points in 11th. No points for Superfast Racing here today. They finished 12th and 14th. Somehow made it, splits them in the Neon Sunset Virtual. Decent pace for them. Pit Crew, not a great race from him. He wasn't that close to scoring tokenless points, and he will only take 15th place. Prix in the Audi Sport Virtual ahead of Suicide, 16th and 17th for them. It was 18th and 19th for Kado and Kader. And Todsod in the FVR had a horrible time of things and was a very, very long way behind his teammate, who was over 2 minutes slower in Game on Goose, and he will take 20th place. That is all for today. What an entertaining race. And next week, running on a new configuration, we have the classic, the jewel in the crown of the ultimate virtual calendar, the Monaco Grand Prix coming up. But for now, thanks for watching. Bye bye.